Welcome back, boxing fans. I just heard a terrible take by Dean the Mean. I don't know what the fuck his name is. His channel's obviously fucking stupid because his take is ridiculous. He was trying to compare the fact that he was pushing for Boots Ennis to get a Terence Crawford fight. And we already know he's a PBC fanboy, and the only reason he was pushing for Boots Ennis to get a Bud Crawford fight is because he was pissed off and embarrassed that his man's Errol Spence got his ass beat up by Bud Crawford. So then he was looking for someone to set fucking shit straight. And so of course he was looking for Boots Ennis. And I like Boots Ennis. But you gotta keep it fucking 100. Bud Crawford is looking for bigger and better things. What has Boots Ennis done? Right? These are valid questions. Right? This is the same Boots Ennis that was a WBO mandatory, but chose to go in a different direction and chase Errol Spence's IBF title. But now it's Bud Crawford ducking him? This is the same Errol Spence who was offered a contract to fight on Black Pride and turned that down because we don't have a contract with Showtime, but we can't fight unless we're involved with Showtime. But now they're no longer involved with Showtime. You know, that statement in itself aged very poorly. Very poorly. But a guy like Dean the Mean, or whoever the fuck this guy is, he wouldn't see the sense to that because he's so full of shit, so full of fucking narrative that he can't even fucking see straight. That shit's embarrassing. I mean, anybody that knows him watching that video obviously feels cringe because there's nothing you could feel but cringe. I mean, he tried to push this narrative and then use Keyshawn Davis as an example of these people being hypocrites. Because now Keyshawn Davis is calling out Tank Davis. And isn't this the same as Boots Ennis calling out Bud Crawford? The clear difference in this situation is Keyshawn Davis just came off of a fucking sensational performance in his home debut, doing what he had to do in front of his peoples. Boots Ennis shit the bed, and I like him, but his performance today was very disappointing, especially highlighted by how well Keyshawn performed, and on the undercard, how well Bam Rodriguez performed. And the guy that didn't carry his end of the fucking show was definitely Boots. I ain't shitting on him because sometimes styles and sometimes fighters just don't mesh well and you don't look good against everyone. I get that. But right now, Bud Crawford is a champion in his fourth weight division. The only reason Boots Ennis has a title is because he was elevated by the IBF. He didn't have to beat a world champion to get a title. So in a sense, he's no different than Devin Haney and many other fighters who were elevated. Tank Davis, who was just elevated, right? Didn't beat someone to win a title, not even beat someone for a vacant title, didn't beat a champion for a title. He was elevated. Like Mario Barros was elevated. I mean, at least Howard beat somebody to get the title, right? And then Stanionis was elevated. Like 3 of these champions at welterweight literally were elevated, didn't even have to fight anyone to get a title. But we're going to compare Boots to Keyshawn. Keyshawn, who's a silver medal Olympian, right? He did it in the amateurs at the highest level. And that's something Boots didn't do. Boots was on the PBC protection plan for years. That's why now he's got 30 fights and he still hasn't fought a top level guy yet. Literally, who's the best guy Boots has fought, right? Because when you compare his resume to, say, a Virgil Ortiz, his resume is very lacking compared to a guy that was at the same weight division and came up in the same circumstance as him. But yet his resume is much worse, right? Because while Top Rank was building him up, or whoever had Virgil, Golden Boy or whoever, was building him up and putting him in fights and really giving him the fights to build his name up, the PBC was burying Boots Ennis on fucking other people's undercards against subpar competition. Now, of course, he left and he's on Matchroom, and unfortunately he was forced to fight a mandatory and did not look great. Obviously, we hope he gets the big fights at 147 pounds. But those big fights are the other world champions at his weight class. Bud Crawford ain't them. So right now what we're asking Boots to do is exactly the same as we're asking Keyshawn Davis to do. Fight the champions at 135 pounds. And of course, one of those is Tank Davis. And this guy's also jumping the fucking bit because everybody knows Keyshawn Davis's next fight is going to be against Lomachenko's countryman for the WBO world title, meaning that he's going to actually beat a champion to win a title. And if he beats him, he's going to be a legitimate 135-pound champion who literally beat a champion to win a title. Something Boots Ennis hasn't done. And so when they're asking him to fight Tank Davis, it's no different than every other champion in every other weight division in boxing. We want to see all these champions fight each other to unify titles. So the take is completely stupid and ridiculous. He's using, oh, he's only got 12 fights compared to Boots Ennis 30. Yeah, that's not a positive for Boots. That's an indictment. It's an indictment that that guy has had 30 fights, is 27 years old, and hasn't fought fucking anybody. Whereas Keyshawn Davis has 12 fights, is 25 years old, and has already fought a higher level of competition, or just as high. His last opponent is a guy that should have been a 140-pound world champion if he wasn't jobbed on the fucking cards, right? And I ain't shitting on Boots. I like Boots. I think Boots is a great fighter. I'm really hoping that he gets big fights in 2025 and gets the chance to prove himself. Just like I'm hoping Keyshawn Davis does the same. But trying to make this statement that somehow people are pushing a double standard. What the fuck are you talking about? Are you mental? We know what you're doing. This has nothing to do with your support of Boots Ennis. This is everything to do with your fucking hate towards Bud Crawford, right? Guys like this are Errol Spence fanboys. They just want anybody that potentially could put Bud Crawford in his place so they can sleep better at night, feel better after their boyfriend got beat up. And I understand that can be traumatic. You know, you love someone, you got your walls covered in his pictures, you fucking making videos all the time about him, you're watching videos about him, you know, you're really all over him, and all of a sudden some dude comes around and beats the shit out of him right in front of you. That's just traumatic. I get it. And obviously that leaves scars. And this is why this guy's now coming out with this irrelevant shit that has nothing to do with anything. Because there's been plenty of opportunity for Boots Ennis to take on far better competition than he's faced yet. And unfortunately, under Matchroom and under the PBC, he hasn't done that yet. Hopefully in 2025, he does. And then we can praise him for doing what Keyshawn Davis just did against an opponent that literally came in 6 pounds overweight. Right? And literally beat the crap out of that guy, putting him in his place in his hometown, making a huge statement. And if he wants to call out Tank Davis based on this victory, nobody should have a fucking problem with that. The problem is you're asking Boots Ennis to call out Bud Crawford based on what? Beating who? Doing what? We're still waiting.